They came to my land with papers, threats, and bulldozers. The HOA said my ranch violated their landscaping rules. What they didn't know is that I'm the man who signs every court order in this county. And when they tried to take what's mine, I didn't just fight back. I made them beg for mercy in court. The sun was barely rising over the horizon when Judge Raymond Cole stepped out onto his porch, coffee steaming in his hand. From the ridge, his 200-acre ranch stretched into gold-tinted pastures, fences standing like sentinels, cattle grazing peacefully under the dawn mist. For Raymond, this land wasn't just soil and timber, it was legacy. His great-grandfather had built the first fence line here, back when the town was a speck on a surveyor's map. Generations of Coles had tended it, mended it, and lived by one rule: protect what's yours, but do it fair. The quiet morning was broken by the low growl of an approaching vehicle. A sleek white SUV came grinding up the gravel road, tires crunching like warning drums. On its side, Pine Ridge Homeowners Association, stenciled in deep green letters. Raymond's brow furrowed. What the hell are they doing here? 3 people stepped out, dressed sharp, armed with clipboards, phones, and smug smiles. At the front was Janet Hall, the HOA president, late 40s, precise in speech, ruthless in spirit. She'd run the HOA like a private army ever since moving into the nearby subdivision 5 years ago. "Good morning," she said, tone sweet as lemon peel. "I'm afraid we have a bit of business to discuss." Raymond's voice was even. "Then discuss." Janet held up a document in a glossy folder. "You're in violation of several HOA landscaping ordinances. Unregistered barn structures, perimeter fencing outside approved dimensions, and, oh, a livestock waste containment issue." Raymond squinted. "Ma'am, this ranch has been here since before your bylaws were printed. You don't have jurisdiction on my land." Janet smirked. "Actually, we do now. The county rezoned this sector last year, and your ranch sits partially within our governing boundaries." Her assistant handed him a notice stamped in red ink. "Notice of property seizure, pending board approval." Raymond's hand tightened around the paper. "You're out of your mind," he said quietly. "You can't seize private property because a fence line offends your taste." Janet crossed her arms. "We can and we will. You have 7 days to vacate the disputed portion of land. After that, it becomes association-controlled green space." She turned to leave, heels crunching against the gravel. Then she paused, glancing back. "Oh, and we'll be sending in surveyors tomorrow. I'd suggest cooperating, Mr. Cole." The SUV's tires spun dust into the morning air. Raymond stood still, the notice trembling in his hand. He read the words again, then again. His jaw set, his pulse slowed. He wasn't just any rancher. He was Judge Raymond Cole, Chief Judge of Pine County Superior Court. And if they wanted a fight, they were about to walk straight into one, in the same courtroom where he'd spent 30 years defending people from exactly this kind of power. His daughter, Sarah, poured coffee, reading the notice with disbelief. "They can't actually do this, can they, Dad?" Raymond took a slow sip. "They can try," and they just did. Sarah slammed the paper down. "It's harassment. You've lived here all your life. This isn't even part of their jurisdiction." He nodded. It wasn't, but if they got a county map redraw, they could have snuck through a boundary expansion, quietly, no one paying attention. Sarah frowned. "So what now?" Raymond looked out the window. "Now we see what they're really after." Inside the HOA office, Janet and her board members met with a man in a gray suit, Richard Hale, a real estate developer. "Is he taking the bait?" he asked, smirking. Janet nodded. "He'll fight it, which is perfect. We'll fine him, escalate, then move for enforcement. The board can vote to seize and sell." Hale leaned back, grinning. "That land's worth millions. Once it's rezoned commercial, we put up shopping centers. I'll make sure you all get, compensation." The board exchanged glances, greed glinting in their eyes. Janet smiled faintly. Then it settled. The old judge won't know what hit him. Raymond walked through the marble halls of the courthouse he'd served in for decades. Every echo of his boots carried the weight of justice, a sound he knew better than his own heartbeat. He entered his office, locked the door, and opened a drawer. Inside, county zoning maps, ordinance books, property deed archives. He spread them out across his desk. Sure enough, the new zoning map had a boundary drawn right through his property, curving just enough to include the barn and the creek where his cattle watered. Quiet little theft, he muttered. Clever, but sloppy. He picked up the phone. Carla, he said to his assistant, pull every meeting record from the Pine Ridge HOA in the last 12 months and get me the county rezoning minutes, fast. Yes, Judge Cole, she replied. He leaned back, exhaling. His gaze drifted to a framed photo on his wall, himself younger years, shaking hands with the governor at his appointment ceremony. He smiled faintly. You want to fight, Janet Hall? You just filed your own conviction. That evening, as the sun sank red behind the hills, 2 HOA surveyors arrived, measuring tape, camera drones, and bright orange stakes in hand. Private property, Raymond called, stepping off his porch. They froze. Mom's orders, one mumbled. Mom can order a pizza, but she doesn't order men on my land. The younger one hesitated. Sir, if we don't, Raymond pointed down the road. Off my land. They scrambled back into their truck and sped away, dust swirling behind them. Raymond exhaled, calm but burning. He knew this was just the start. Janet slammed her folder on the table. He threatened my workers. We'll file an injunction. Her vice president, Tom, frowned. Janet, he's a judge. This could blow up. She shot him a glare. Not if we make him look like the aggressor. That night, Raymond's phone rang. A familiar voice spoke on the line. Ray, it's Sheriff Dalton. HOA filed a complaint. Says you obstructed a legal survey. Raymond laughed softly. You know me better than that. I do, Dalton replied. But it's on record now. They're pushing hard. Let 'em, said Raymond. By the time I'm done, they'll be begging to stay off my docket. The desk was buried in files, maps, county code books. His daughter entered quietly. You're working yourself to death, Dad. Raymond didn't look up. There's a difference between working and preparing. For what? He looked her dead in the eye. For war. The Pine Ridge HOA hosted a charity gala downtown. Champagne glasses, silk dresses, and the usual self-congratulation filled the air. Janet stood at the podium. The HOA's mission, she declared, is to preserve community beauty and protect property values, even when it means tough decisions. A reporter raised his hand. Is that what's happening with the Cole Ranch case? Janet's smile twitched. We don't discuss private matters publicly. But behind her polished words, fear rippled. Because in the back of the room, Judge Raymond Cole had just walked in, suit pressed, eyes sharp, a calm storm on 2 legs. The crowd turned, whispers spread like fire. He approached the podium, slow and deliberate. When he spoke, his voice cut through the noise like a gavel. You talk about protecting property values, but you're not protecting homes. You're stealing them. The room fell silent. Janet's face drained of color. Raymond handed her a folder. Inside are the rezoning minutes, showing who approved your boundary expansion and how your developer friend paid for it. Gasps. Cameras flashed. Janet's voice trembled. You can't just walk in here and... He leaned close, whispering, Ma'am, I own the courthouse you're about to answer in. He turned and walked out, leaving chaos in his wake. That night, headlines erupted. HOA president accused of illegal land grab. Judge exposes corruption. Raymond didn't smile, didn't celebrate. He simply stood on his porch, looking over his land, whispering to the stars. This isn't over. Not until justice is done. The morning after the gala, Pine County awoke to a storm that wasn't made of thunder. It was made of headlines. Every local channel, every paper, every online forum lit up with one name: Judge Raymond Cole. HOA president under investigation for illegal rezoning scandal. County judge exposes land grab in Pine Ridge. Developers and HOA under fire. Ethics probe launched. In a single night, Janet Hall's empire of intimidation had cracked, but it hadn't fallen yet. Rain fell in thin sheets. The land smelled of wet cedar and justice stirring. Sarah stood on the porch, watching her father in the distance. He was by the barn, feeding the horses in silence. She walked up slowly. "Dad," she said softly, "you did it. You exposed them." Raymond didn't answer right away. He closed the gate, leaned on it, rain dripping off his hat brim. Exposure's one thing, but justice takes time. He turned to face her, the steel in his eyes dimmed by exhaustion. "They'll come harder now. They'll lawyer up, twist the story, drag my name through the mud. People like that don't surrender, they retaliate." Sarah frowned. "Then what do we do?" He exhaled, voice low. "We go to court." Janet paced her office, phone pressed to her ear. "I don't care what the headlines say. Fix this, Richard." On the other end, developer Richard Hale's tone was cold. "You're radioactive now, Janet. The judge's press leak ruined our cover." "He ambushed me," she snapped. "He made it sound like I forged documents." "Did you?" Silence. "Then there's nothing to fix. You're on your own." He hung up. Janet's hands trembled as she stared at her reflection in the dark glass window. For the first time, she looked afraid. The grand courthouse loomed like a stone fortress against the gray sky. Reporters swarmed the steps, microphones flashing like bayonets. "Judge Cole, are you recusing yourself from the HOA case? Did you leak the rezoning documents? Are you using your position for revenge?" He kept walking, silent and composed. He wasn't presiding this time. He'd stepped off the bench voluntarily. The case was now before Judge Emily Parks, one of the few colleagues he trusted. Inside the courtroom, the tension was thick enough to choke on. On one side sat Janet Hall, flanked by her HOA lawyer and 2 board members. On the other, Raymond Cole and his daughter, Sarah. Judge Parks entered, her voice calm but commanding. "Court is now in session. Case number 27-01B, Pine Ridge Homeowners Association versus Raymond Cole." She looked up, eyes meeting Raymond's briefly. There was mutual respect there and a silent message. "I'll handle this fair." HOA attorney Martin Dunn rose first, a man who'd built a career bullying homeowners with fine print and arrogance.
"Your Honor," he began, "this is a simple matter of compliance. The defendant's property, while historically significant, now falls under Pine Ridge jurisdiction. Mr. Cole has failed to comply with HOA landscaping, fencing, and zoning ordinances, and has threatened legal action to intimidate the board." Judge Parks nodded. "Understood. Mr. Cole, your response." Raymond stood, straight-backed, voice calm but powerful. "Your Honor, this case isn't about grass length or fence height. It's about fraud. The HOA redrew zoning maps to include my land, without county consent, without homeowner notice, and under the direction of a developer with financial ties to the board president." A ripple of murmurings filled the gallery. Judge Parks lifted a brow. "Do you have proof of that claim?" Raymond turned to his daughter. She opened a folder, handing him a stack of documents. He stepped forward, laying them on the judge's bench. "These are the official county meeting minutes from the month the rezoning was filed. The supposed approval signatures were forged using a scanned template from a prior year. I had the ink dated. It doesn't match." The attorney lunged up. "Objection! Irrelevant!" Judge Parks's gavel came down hard. "Overruled." She leaned forward,
eyes narrowing at Janet. "Mrs. Hall, is this true?" I, I wasn't aware of the Specifics? Raymond said, sharp now. "You signed them, ma'am." He held up another paper, a notarized copy with her name, time-stamped 2 weeks after the supposed meeting. A collective gasp echoed. Janet's lawyer scrambled, whispering furiously in her ear. Judge Parks sat back slowly. "I've reviewed the documents. The evidence suggests manipulation of zoning records and falsified signatures. The HOA's motion to seize land is hereby suspended pending investigation." Janet's lawyer stood abruptly. "Your Honor, we protest." "Sit down, counselor. You protest nothing. You'll cooperate with the county investigation I'm initiating immediately." Janet's face went pale. Raymond's jaw flexed, relief washing through his shoulders, but he wasn't smiling. He knew this was only the pause before the real battle, because the HOA wasn't done yet. Rain hammered against the ranch windows. Sarah was asleep upstairs, but Raymond sat at his desk, the glow of a single lamp outlining his tired face. A car engine rumbled outside. Headlights flashed through the rain. He stepped to the porch. A man stood there in the dark, umbrella in hand. It was Richard Hale, the developer. "Evening, Judge," he said smoothly. "Mind if I come in?" Raymond's eyes narrowed. "You're trespassing." "Just talk," Hale said. "You've made your point in court. You've embarrassed the wrong people. But if you walk away now, sell me the South 40 acres, I'll make sure the HOA drops every claim. You'll be left alone. Retire in peace." Raymond stared at him, long, silent. Then he spoke, voice like gravel. "You know, Mr. Hale, I've seen your kind all my life. Men who think everything's for sale if the price is right." Hale smiled faintly. "So what's your price?" Raymond stepped closer, the porch light catching the hard line of his jaw. "Justice." Hale's smile faded. "That's not profitable." Raymond took another step, unflinching. "It's not supposed to be." Hale's mask cracked, anger slipping through. "You'll regret this. The HOA is not your only enemy now." He turned, disappearing into the storm. By dawn, Raymond's property line was marked again, this time not by stakes, but by burned grass. Someone had torched his Southfield fence. Sarah found him standing there, staring at the smoldering remains. "This is getting dangerous," she said, voice trembling. He nodded, slow. "That means we're close." "Close to what?" He looked at the horizon, where sunlight cut through storm clouds. Truth. Weeks passed. The HOA board fractured under questioning. 2 members resigned. 1 turned whistleblower. Emails surfaced, linking Janet and Hale to a shell company that stood to profit from the land seizure. Judge Parks scheduled a final hearing, not HOA versus Cole anymore, but State versus Pine Ridge HOA. And this time, it wouldn't just be a trial, it would be a reckoning. Scene: Raymond's reflection, night before the verdict. The ranch was quiet. Sarah sat by the fire, her father beside her, both staring into the flames. "Are you nervous?" she asked softly. He smiled faintly. "After 30 years on the bench, I've seen worse monsters. But this one's personal." "It is, but not because they came for my land, because they came for the idea that power belongs only to those who grab it. That's what I can't let stand." He looked out the window one last time before turning in. Tomorrow, it would all end, one way or another. The courthouse was packed to its wooden rafters that morning. The sound of boots scuffing the old floor echoed beneath the chandelier lights that hadn't been cleaned since the 1950s. Every seat was filled. Locals, ranchers, reporters, all there to see the showdown everyone was whispering about. The HOA versus Judge Marshall. The irony was thick enough to choke on. The bailiff's voice cut through the murmurs. "All rise.
The County Court of Elk Ridge is now in session. The Honorable Judge Benjamin Carter presiding. Everyone stood, including Judge William Marshall, now on the other side of the bench, seated beside his attorney. He was calm, steady, the same man who'd kept his county together for 20 years, but this time the gavel was not in his hand. Across the aisle sat Greg Turner, the HOA president, surrounded by lawyers in polished suits, smug behind their clipboards. Judge Carter spoke. "You may proceed." Greg's lawyer, a slick man named Brent Dalton, stood. "Your Honor, the Elk Ridge Homeowners Association seeks rightful enforcement of covenant regulations, as detailed in Article 9, Section 3, prohibiting unregistered livestock, unauthorized fencing, and—" Marshall's lawyer interrupted. "Your Honor, those covenants were signed by the HOA illegally. They hold no jurisdiction beyond subdivision limits." Judge Carter raised his hand. "Mr. Dalton, is it true that the HOA's boundaries exclude the Marshall Ranch?" Dalton hesitated, papers trembling. "Technically, yes, but the environmental buffer zone—" "Thank you," said Judge Carter, cutting him off. "That's enough for now." Greg Turner's smile wavered, the first crack in his armor. Marshall sat quietly, hands folded, watching his enemy squirm. This wasn't revenge, this was reckoning. Dalton called his first witness, HOA Vice President Sandra Hill. Her voice shook as she took the stand. "Miss Hill," Dalton began, "did Mr. Marshall's ranch violate environmental codes by burning waste without a permit?" Sandra hesitated. I don't know if it was waste. It looked like brush clearing." "Did he threaten the HOA?" "No, he just told us to leave his property." Dalton's frown darkened. "Didn't you feel intimidated?" I felt stupid," she said softly. "We shouldn't have been there." A gasp rippled through the courtroom. Dalton's jaw tightened. He dismissed her abruptly. Greg Turner's expression darkened. He leaned toward Dalton and hissed, "You said she'd stick to the script." Now it was Marshall's lawyer's turn. He approached the stand, placing a thick folder on the podium. "Mr. Turner, how many properties has your HOA foreclosed on in the last 5 years?" Greg shifted. "That's irrelevant. Answer the question." 7. "Of those 7, how many were sold to your brother-in-law's company, Turner Holdings?" Greg's face turned red. "That's not your business." "It is now. We have financial statements showing money transferred from those sales into your personal account." Dalton jumped up. "Objection." "Overruled," said Judge Carter coldly. "Continue." The lawyer walked closer, voice sharp as a blade. "Mr. Turner, you accuse Judge Marshall of zoning violations to justify a seizure, but your real goal was to force a sale and profit from his land, wasn't it?" His silence was louder than any confession. The gallery murmured like thunder.
By noon, the HOA's legal fortress was crumbling. Witness after witness fell apart under questioning. Emails surfaced, bank transfers, secret recordings, each one a nail in the coffin. Finally, Judge Carter leaned back. "I've heard enough," he said. "Court will recess until verdict." As the crowd dispersed, Marshall stood, turning toward Greg. "You could have come to me, man to man," he said quietly. Greg sneered. "You think you've won? I'll appeal this." Marshall gave a small, sad smile. "You can't appeal character." The courtroom was silent when Judge Carter returned. He adjusted his glasses and began reading. "In the case of Elk Ridge HOA versus William Marshall," he paused, "this court finds the HOA acted outside its jurisdiction, engaged in malicious prosecution, and attempted fraudulent seizure of private property." He looked up, directly at Greg Turner.
Therefore, I am ordering the immediate dissolution of the Elk Ridge HOA. Its funds will be frozen pending investigation. Gasps exploded through the room. Greg slumped in his chair. Sandra Hill covered her mouth, tears falling. Judge Carter continued. And I hereby restore full ownership and rights of the Marshall Ranch to its rightful owner. Marshall closed his eyes, exhaling slowly. For the first time in months, peace. Outside the courthouse, the town erupted. Reporters crowded, microphones flashing. But Marshall wasn't there for interviews. He was on his porch that evening, watching the sunset over the same fields his grandfather once plowed. Emily joined him, a gentle smile on her face. So what happens now, Dad? He looked at her and at the land beyond. We rebuild, not just fences, but faith, in ourselves, in what's right. The wind carried the sound of cattle in the distance, mingled with the faint hum of cicadas. The world felt right again. Power isn't about who writes the rules. It's about who lives by them when no one's watching. The HOA forgot that, but I never did. Cue slow fade out, soft acoustic guitar, and golden sunset over the ranch.